Nazareth, spiritually given by his spirit through L.M. Arnold of Poughkeepsie, New York, describing his essence, his oneness with God, and his oneness with brethren, his relationship to the Word, and his relationship to man. But not in infinite degree can he separate himself, for a half finite or two infinites cannot be. The separated portion must be finite and determinative, for his being is never impaired, and his power is eternal, and his whole ever finite. There is one more point for me to touch upon. Then I will leave you to pursue the truth by seeking to understand and have faith in the revelation made by me through this medium. In the books called The History of the Origin of All Things, already published, are publishing by him under my direction. Seek the truth there, but seek its confirmation in a revelation to you, in your own internal, which you may have if you ask of God to show you the truth. But then, the earnest, sincere seeker for truth, fear not a revolution in your faith in externals. Strive after an establishment of your faith in God's power, love, wisdom, will, to exert his power, exercise his love, and display his wisdom, and more than all, show faith in existence of that infinite mercy which endures forever. That mercy, those attributes are now existent, and as God is, so he was, and so he will always be, at all times and evermore. Let us consider how evidently the fact that the revelation has been made stands forth in the history of mankind. Let us look to every ancient record, whether it be preserved in the Bible, or Al-Quran, or the Zen Avesta, or the Sanskrit Vedas. I'm correcting the way that's said, which kind of, if this was the Spirit of God, they could at least get the right term instead of a similar term, right? Let us look at the modern views of Christianity, from the Roman Catholic claiming infallibility for his church to the Quaker who possesses to be guided by it, from the Jewish prophets to the heathen oracles, from Balaam to Mormon or Smith, from the bishop who asks a blessing or declares remission of sins, to the humble seeker after divine help who prays in his closet for divine guidance. And we shall find one universal belief to have prevailed in the minds of every nation, tongue, and people, that prayer has an effect, that God does interfere in the course of human events. Does the universality of this belief denote a general delusion or a truth derived from one source? The internal operation of the divinity in man, thus leading him to rely on fate, or chance, or God, or number of gods, as the controller of his actions, as the one superior intelligence, or combination of intelligences in whose hands or power his destiny rests. I lead you again to that manifestation of deity which exists in man, in you a beggar or a simpleton, in you a prince or a philosopher. My friend, all mankind believe God afflicts or may afflict them. Some believe he does it from good motives, some try to persuade themselves it is from an unworthy one, but all agree that life and death and peace and war, health and happiness, every ill, every good, is in his power to bestow or suffer to exist, to remove or to sustain. How then can you doubt the existence of God, his omniscience or his omnipresence? You, whose mind is sufficiently developed to receive a high and pure idea of God as superior to the best of men, and having more power and authority than all men together, you who can faintly conceive of the effects of these attributes of an almighty, self-existent being, cannot refuse to let this guidance, so much looked for and prayed for, to manifest itself in your internal, to lead you to a holy communion with it, of reliance on its teachings and of veneration for its injunctions or precepts, and a perfect hope in its purity and love. Such action I ask you to observe. You may not proceed it if you rush the cares of the world and the enjoyment of self, if you dwell upon that which is low and degrading, impure and altogether unworthy to occupy the time of an immortal soul, or of a mind whose existence continues into another state of being, you may and will perceive it if you earnestly seek the aid of that divinity you admit exists, and if you seek to submit to its teachings, you will be instructed. If you endeavor to obey its precepts, you will progress, and if you walk by its directions, you will enter into the kingdom of heaven, peace on earth and goodwill to men. This was the kingdom I came to establish, and this is the kingdom I yet work to establish by the free consent of the governed. Lay aside, then, every fear. Let no man make you afraid to dwell under your own vine or fig tree, which is spiritually existent in your heart, and from whence cometh heavenly truth, precious fruit, holy love for all mankind. Chapter 7. The relation of all the foregoing to man in the body. At last I take leave of this subject, not because I have exhausted it, not because I have told you as much as you can bear. I will hereafter present more to you in some other way. If you have faith in this, and in God, that he rules and communes with men through Christ, our sent Spirit, you will I find I am truthful and consistent with myself, and with other revelation, if you endeavor to enter the heavenly state or condition to which I have urged you, the first step toward which is prayer to God for help, and such prayer as I gave you for your guidance is, if fully joined with, effectual for your preservation from error. Let us pray that God will help us, and our sincere desires shall ascend to his throne. Let us seek truth, and we shall find it. But if you cherish your prejudices or traditions as more sacred or pleasing than the pure and unmixed truth, you must not blame God or his Christ. Well, the Bible lists a bunch of Christ, doesn't it? That you are permitted to enjoy the exercise of your free will. Be then what you choose to be. Your fate is in your own disposition, so far as your resolution is concerned. Of yourself you can do nothing, but ask of God. He grants to all men their request measurably, and sometimes to their confusion or distress, sometimes to their encouragement and bliss. May you choose that good part which shall not be taken from you. Damage the... Is that onion or chive? And give God the glory of all the good that you in any way enjoy. While the evil you suffer, you rejoice to believe it is only from the inharmonious desires of your unreconciled heart. Amen. This, then, is the harmony of all. Serve God and love mankind. Serve God by loving mankind, and connect the one with the other. Serve God by loving him, and by seeking to know his will, and by doing his will, that you may show your love for him. Serve God by candid desires for establishment in truth and true faith, and proper reliance on him, who alone is the foundation of all power, the source of all goodness, the repository of every good thing that you possess or have performed. Serve God by unceasing aspirations for higher powers, but by unceasing exercise of those you possess, as the means of procuring more power, and as entitling you to the reward of being declared a faithful servant who merits the praise of having done well. Having well done. Okay. Let us all then join as a band of brothers, not as separating from others with whom we are intimately associated, religiously or socially, but as a brotherhood exclusive in its character, only as a preparation for diffusion, only as a pleasure flowing constantly for the general good, and only exclusive as others will not unite with it. Let the door for conversion ever stand open, and the partition walls of sectarianism be broken down, undermined by little and little, and by the efforts of all well-disposed, spiritually minded men, to bring about that era of good feeling, when the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and peace and harmony prevail undisturbed by the most discordant materials, which one refused to do one act together, now desiring to work together constantly to bring in the reign of Christ in the minds and hearts of all mankind, and that outward manifestation of Christ's power and reign outwardly displayed as King of kings and Lord of all, so shall the fifth monarchy appear as a bride coming down from heaven, and as a reign and kingdom that shall have no end, but shall endure till time shall be no more. Now, see, you don't have to be gender non-conforming to, get into that role. Thus, reader, I have disappointed you by giving you much spiritual advice and little historical information. Well, this wouldn't be a historical source anyways. This would be a belief-based thing. But there is much that will repay you for your time and your money, if you will only submit to be taught. Amen. There is now before you a rule of conduct which will, if followed, lead you to know God as you have not known him, to love mankind as you have not loved them, and to submit to divine guidance as you have never submitted. The man who fully submits himself becomes endowed with power from on high to lead others into truth, to be a landmark and a guide, a light on a high place, a beacon for the light of truth, and for the steersman who sails life's slender bark. Such beacon lights are important, till that steersman is the guide that leads surely to heaven, and is himself the guide sure and unfailing. Such a light, such a guide, you should submit to, and so become to men yourself a guide and light. May you be such, but I have also a higher duty for you to perform, a greater work for you to do, which is to submit so that you have no will but God's, so that you are perfect, even as he is perfect. This you despair of being, but God will raise you to it, if you thoroughly desire to be raised to his right hand. But few there be who will reach this point within a reasonably understood period. To most, it will be an incomprehensible one, yet eternity is long, and God is patient, and his mercy endureth forever. And to him that overcometh I will give a white stone, whereon a new name shall be engraved. I like to give my interview subjects new names. The eternity God has in store for every man is a joy man cannot understand or, in the faintest degree, appreciate. The heart of man is incapable of it, but let man form his own idea of the most perfect bliss he can conceive of, and such shall be his heaven, if he chooses in the second sphere. The third sphere is above that, even as the second is beyond the first, and so on to the seventh, which is immeasurably beyond the preceding one. All happiness that man is capable of, he shall enjoy. But he is capable of great enjoyment, for he is an emanation of God, and is in God's image. Such is the prospect which may confidentially be placed before every man as the sure result of his creation or formation as an individuality separate from God. Such is God's wisdom, such his power, such his love. Give thanks then and be joyful, O man, listen and receive the voice of God at heart. And I'm sorry about my being distracted by being bit by bugs, but I don't want them to bite me.